So for the past 3 years, I've been working on this project for the Denver International Airport. It's a sculpture piece. The project is worth $450,000. It's basically my first big public art piece that's not a mural. So I want to share the presentation that I did for the selection committee to be awarded that project. Mind you, a couple of hundred artists applied, and then they whittle it down to 5 artists to be on the short list. And this is the presentation I did to the selection committee to get awarded that project. And I want to share it mainly because public art in this space is very hard to get into. So I want to share my presentation because this is literally my first public art project of this scale. So in a second, I'm going to run that video, and it's actually the presentation, me presenting it to the stakeholders, but it's the same presentation that I did to the selection committee. So you're going to be able to see the different slides and me explaining the concept of the piece and the different whys and how we're going to put it together, all those different things in a proposal for them to feel comfortable picking me. All right, let's go.
And with that, now I'm very excited to introduce the selected artist that might be familiar to many of you because he is a Colorado guy. Thomas Detour Evans is from Aurora, but you will see his murals everywhere. Aurora, Boulder, Inglewood, Denver, you see his work. But we're so excited because this is going to be a large-scale 3D piece, and this is unique to the airport and something, I believe, his first 3D piece of this side. And I would have told you a little bit about the piece, but I am not going to because he has the best story to tell of how he has concepted this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Thomas and let him tell the story of this gorgeous piece that's going to be joining our airport. Thomas?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me, Stacey, and the rest of DIA. Super excited to be here. But yeah, so I guess I really want to sort of tell you all about the concept and then the story behind the concept. For those that don't know me, I put together like a couple slides at the beginning that just showcases the murals that I do, because that is what most people around Denver and part of the nation really know me for. Is like I do a ton of colorful, bright and bold portraiture sort of murals and figurative work. I've done it in Denver. These two on the left are recent ones that I did middle to late last year at my alma mater, downtown Auraria campus at the University of Colorado, Denver. So those were super exciting, painting some of my fellow alumni as well. And then the one on the right is one I did in West Dallas in Wisconsin, right beside Milwaukee. So I do a ton of murals around town. So it was super exciting to sort of apply for this call from DIA and to try to venture into getting into 3D art, because I'm used to doing 2D art on a large scale. So getting into 3D art was something that I really wanted to do. So hopefully you'll like the presentation today in terms of how I'm transitioning into the space of 3D art and sort of like what this is going to be. So let me actually give you a little bit of background on this next slide and really just tell you about why I made some of the decisions that I did make when coming up with this design. I'm a military brat, so my dad went to West Point, so I grew up moving every 3 to 5 years, so pretty much everywhere around the world, and then really getting used to airports and then getting used to planes and, just traveling everywhere. So I'm used to sort of like carrying everything in my bag and in my luggage. So when I took my background and those experiences and tried to apply that to the artist call that DIA had, I spent about 3 months of just like trying to develop an idea that was really unique and really just like talked about some of the goals that they wanted to have in terms of having this art piece in DIA. And some of those things that sort of I was trying to tackle with was, a piece that was commanding. I love to do big 2D murals, and how do I translate that into 3D work? So I wanted it to be big, I wanted it to be commanding and bold. I wanted to make sure I added a sense of contrast and sort of wonderment and landmark, and make it to where it was sort of like my big blue bear at the airport. So something that was also shareable, because the kids today, they love to share stuff. Anyone in general just love to share stuff because they just love to sort of show people where they're at. So I wanted to make a piece where, you know, you felt great about taking a picture of it, being in front of it, and sharing it with people. So that was sort of like the idea that I sort of went into it with, and combining that with a lot of the experiences that I've had traveling and, you know, with the artwork. You can kind of see some of the sketches of what I was thinking about. And then really, at the end of the day, I started honing in on the idea of luggage and the idea of the things that we sort of use to carry other valuable items around with us. So I started sketching this idea in the top right, as you can see, of like these luggage kind of put together, and really just started honing in on that, and wanted to sort of get a sample sort of done to sort of see it in real life. So on the next slide, you can kind of see where I went to arcs around Aurora, and then went to Goodwill downtown off of Broadway in Denver, and started grabbing, you know, all these loose suitcases and, you know, luggage and bags, and wanted to see exactly what this idea would look like in real life. So on the next slide, I'm in my studio working on putting this idea together and seeing how it would look as a small sample. So you can kind of see, hopefully the video is going, you can kind of see me working on this idea with these different pieces of luggage and bags that I gathered from, you know, the thrift store, and putting them together in a way that was really interesting to me. But really just like, I wanted to see this proof of concept, whether it would work or not, and what it would feel like, you know, to sort of be up close on it. And really, like this next slide, when I have everything sort of finished, you can kind of see what it looked like put together. So in my studio, I was thinking about the idea when it came to this concept of scale. How can this scale up to be even larger and to be formed into different shapes? You know, the idea of color, how do I sort of color this and make it sort of a transition from my 2D work that's super colorful to a 3D piece that's super colorful but cohesive as well. So the idea of color and the idea of volume as well. On the next slide, you can sort of like see the video of me walking around it a little bit. And so how would this sort of scale up, and how would this sort of tackle the idea of volume, of making it feel like it was bigger than life in that sort of space at Concourse B East. And then also too, one of the main things I wanted to do was make it relatable as well. And because a lot of the work that I do ties with community, because I'm all about community, I'm all about, you know, making sure that the people in the neighborhood, especially when it comes to public art, are able to relate to it. So how do I make it relatable? And that's why I really wanted to sort of focus on luggage, because that's something that we all have in common. So really, in the end, it came out to be the piece that I'm about to show you right now on the next slide, a piece called "It's Not What You Take, It's What You Bring Back." And it's basically a collection of upcycled luggage and items put together to create a sense of infinite motion. And it just really talks about the common journey we have in life and the items that we take with us. And it's not only bold on a macro level, because when you see it for the first time, you're going to be at the beginning of that moving body escalator walking to your gate. But when you walk close to it, it's going to change and be interesting on a micro level as well. And I think we got this video playing as well. So I did a 3D rendering so that people could see what it would look like and feel like as they walk around. And so on a macro level, it feels like this infinity shape at the beginning. And then when you get closer, you see it loops. It has this looping shape, and you're walking underneath it, and you're sort of discovering all these different items and all these different pieces of luggage and different bags, and everything is going to be upcycled, so every angle is going to be different and interesting in many ways. And I for the presentation, I did a 3D rendering and I put myself in there, so that was super exciting because I never do that for 2D mural proposals or anything, but 3D art is like I have to figure out a way to sort of put this idea from that's abstract in my head into reality. So we did these 3D models and I threw myself in there. So that was really fun, feeling like I was in a video game. But on the next slide, let's get more into some of the details about this piece. I titled it, "It's not what you take, it's what you bring back," because in the end, like when we talk about luggage, the space in our luggage is sort of like currency. It's sort of like object real estate. So, you know, when you're traveling to a place, you bring the things that you think you need, that you want, to that destination. And then when you gain experience and you grow and you sort of learn something from traveling from that destination, the things that you bring back are a lot of times going to be different, because we want to sort of bring some of the things that we gathered throughout the travel, throughout that experience with us. And that's where it becomes, you know, space in a piece of luggage becomes very valuable, because I've left many sneakers in many places. I had to triple, sometimes do 5 layers of coats and shirts just to make sure I had space in my luggage. So the idea of space and luggage for me was super important. So the stuff that we have in there, we really, really, truly hold valuable. And that's one thing I think we all have in common when we travel through a place like DIA. So that's where I was really sort of trying to hone in on this piece. And, you know, the idea of having that piece of luggage sort of like in this infinite loop was something that I really wanted to sort of emphasize as well. And getting into the shape, because I know a lot of people are interested about that, it's really inspired by the idea of this 24-hour nature of DIA and airports and just traveling and planes in general. There's always a plane in the sky. And that's sometimes crazy to think about, is like, there's always someone traveling at, you know, at a fast pace in the sky around the world. And airports usually, they just never close, because there's always planes in the sky. And for me, that was really, really interesting. So that's why I had this idea of having like this infinity shape, which is basically just a math symbol talking about it's never ending. So that's what I really wanted to hone in on when you're sort of far away. And then when you get closer, you see that it has this looping shape. And it feels like a roller coaster as well, but it also emphasizes or sort of references the idea of takeoff and landing. So like you're landing in the day and you're taking off at night, and taking off at night and landing in the day with the changing colors. So that's something that I really loved about this shape, and that's what I really think people will sort of get from it when they sort of view it and experience it. The overall size of this piece is going to be around 27 by 10 feet by 12 feet. And it varies just a little bit depending on the type of luggage that we get and how far we expand it. And then there's going to be items that also talk about Colorado floating around the piece as well. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But also about the color on this next slide, the colors are influenced by the idea of sunrise and sunset. And it also references 24, that idea of 24/7, that never ending, because, you know, there's always a sunrise, there's always a sunset, because, you know, the earth is always rotating around the sun, and we're always sort of experiencing that. So, and especially in Colorado, where we're all about outdoors and all about nature and all about getting outside, I really want to hone in on the idea of that sunrise sunset, because we have a lot of sun. I think we have all different seasons, but we also have a lot of sun, which is very unique about Colorado and especially Denver at this altitude. And there's going to be about 13 different steps of color on the actual piece, and each bag and each item will have a solid color, but you can kind of see that transition as it goes from dark blue to lighter blue to a powdery sort of yellow to orange and red. That transition from sunrise, sunset, and that loop, it just never ends, never ends, never ends. And that's what I really, really like about this piece and about the shape, and I think other people will like as well, because I wanted to make sure every decision that I made for this piece, from the color to the shape, is really just referencing Colorado, DIA, travel, and really just talks about the personality, the history, and just all about Colorado. The next slide will go in deeper into the different items and the luggage. So this piece is going to be upcycled. So all the luggage and items will be sourced locally, because I want all the items and luggage to really hone in on the history and personality of Colorado and talk about who we are and how rich we are in terms of, just history and personality. So getting the bags from friends, family, community members, basically having stories through the bag talk about, everything from Samsonite and Scarpa or Topo who either starting in Colorado or are based in Colorado, so like businesses or schools at all different levels, talking about everything from University of Colorado to, community college in Grand Junction, or, could be any school at any level. And then also talking about organizations, talking about things like, the X Games that we have in the mountains, or, the military community that we have. So, all the different bags that we have that we collect from people will have a different story tied to it. So then you're able to learn it. Oh, this is Buckley Air Force Base, or this is, the history of the Tuskegee Airmen in Colorado, or this is the history of the Olympic Training Center that we have in Colorado Springs. So all these different little items, I think, can really lean into teaching other people and just other people in Colorado more about Colorado. And that's why the documentation and the prominence of each sort of piece is going to be important to the story of this piece of artwork. And then on the next slide, you can kind of see, as I gather the different bags and luggage, we're going to talk about the donation form later, but as I gather the bags and luggage and work with a fabrication team, we're going to make sure we prep the bags and make it as light as possible and prep it for the armature. So we're going to coat it, and then we're going to color it and coat it again. So we're going to take those bags and sort of just transform it to be a building block for this actual piece, so that, when you're seeing the entire piece, it's made up of upcycled items from people that you may know from yourself, and you feel good about that. Not only that, like I said, I'm going to have items floating around it on the next slide. And these items will also be sourced locally as well. And some of them I'll have to fabricate. So like most likely like a shoe, talking about the Boulder Marathon, because I know that's a popular marathon. And I really want to have like a running shoe in there talking about that. But, probably getting a cast of the shoe, or, a cast of the volleyball from a local school. So that's something that I'm going to do as well, so that every piece, like I said, in here has a reference to Colorado. And then to do everything, I'm basically putting everything together, and it will be suspended from the ceiling about 12 feet from the ground. I don't know if anyone can jump that high, so I think that's a safe enough height. So 12 feet from the ground, we're going to have suspended armature that sort of everything is attached to. So that's sort of like how it's going to look from like the top down a little bit. So just to give you a sense of like what it looks like from that perspective. And then to put everything together on the next slide, I have next slide after that, I have the team Demerge. So Demerge is an amazing fabrication team locally in Colorado. They've done quite a few things. You may have seen some of their work around town, or if you travel, they do stuff everywhere. So I have them helping me out, along with Mary Valdez too, to put everything together and to help me sort of make sure this happen. So they'll help me with the fabrication, the prepping of the luggage. They're going to help me with the, the transportation, the installation at DIA, and then the maintenance. And really, I think this is going to be a fantastic project, because everyone in here is experienced, and then bringing my experience in terms of the creative and the artistic and the community part of it is going to be super, super exciting. And then really where I think this piece has a lot of legs is, I think the next slide is when it comes to discovering the different items. So like one of the things like I said, I really wanted to do is a community component, and that's like making sure a lot of the bags were upcycled as sort of the building blocks, and then having other people discover it. Because one thing I really want is, for myself or for you or another family member or friend or community member to go to DIA and say, hey, this bag right here, part of this art piece is my grandmother's, or my grandfather's, or it's my bag that I traveled with when I, you know, was in college and I did a trip to China or, you know, Mumbai or something. So it's like I really want people to discover some of those stories about Colorado and about some of those individuals that donated. So the website is going to be important. So having a way for people to say, hey, I have a good 2-hour layover. Let me check out this piece. Okay, let me go to this website. Oh, I can see exactly this bag and where this bag comes from. And oh, I didn't know that Colorado had an Olympic training center. Oh, I didn't know about the school in Colorado, but they know about it through the actual website, but also giving, like, you know, fun facts about the piece, giving fun behind the scenes about the fabrication and the people involved as well. So the website for me is going to be sort of like a whole nother component that I think is going to be super exciting when it comes to making sure that the piece is able to be something that I think a lot of people can relate to, because when you see a large public art piece and it's made out of pure metal, sometimes you just feel disconnected. But when you have a piece like this, I think you're able to learn a lot about it because you relate to it, because it could have been your bag, it could have been your family member's bag or someone that you know, and you're able to connect with it a lot more because it's a common item that we all have anyway, and it's sort of has this personal story tied to it. So we're going to try to get as many bags for this piece that is connected to sort of like a history or a prominence or a story from someone in Colorado. And to do that, on the next slide, I also worked on putting together a form. So this is the heavy lifting before the actual heavy lifting of all the bags and armatures. And the link down there is the link to the jot form where you're able to see, I put the little screenshots out where you're able to see exactly what this project is about, put in your contact information, how to reach you, where you are in Colorado. I think the city has questions in there as well they wanted to put in there, but really it's showcasing exactly the bags that we want for the actual sculpture and what they look like. On the next slide, I think we can zoom in on that. You're able to see the different types of bags. So, you know, all different types of bags, mostly bags that are around 28 inches by 18 by 10 inches and under, so that we can get a ton of bags on this this art piece. But you know, they span the gamut in terms of what they look like. So it could be those hard shell Samsonite bags, or it could be the duffel bags. It could be a military bag that you use, or you know, it could be an old school sort of vintage suitcase or piece of luggage that, you know, an old relative had that passed away, and it's just sitting in your garage or basement that you want to make sure that you don't throw it away, that it's contributing to the future. And it's like people are able to learn more about the history of that individual. So taking those bags, and I think on the next slide I have like an image of the in-between process of like prepping some of the bags for that sample piece. So these are some of the things that I took from that Arcs and Goodwill, some of those luggage and some of my bags as well, and coated it and put it together and then colored it afterwards. And that's sort of like one of the in-between processes that what it looks like. So all the bags that are going to be donated are going to be chopped up and torn apart in terms of making it as efficient as possible to be a puzzle piece for the actual art piece, and then coated. So once you donate a bag, that's one thing I want to make sure I have clear, is that once you donate a bag, it won't be able to be used afterwards. And even if you do donate a bag, it's not guaranteed that it will be a part of the piece, because this piece has so many pieces sort of comprising it. It's going to be sort of like a Tetris in terms of putting everything together. And we're just trying to collect as many bags as possible and see exactly how that puzzle piece can fit together. But if you do wish to donate a piece of luggage because you just want to get rid of some luggage, or you really want to be a part of this public art project that you can actually reference when you go to the airport or when someone else goes to the airport, you can go to this form and donate a piece of luggage. And like I said, it showcases the information on the types of luggage, the size of luggage, and then I have a space for you to upload pictures of your piece of luggage and actually tell a story about the piece of luggage so that we can take this information and include that into part of the website. Not every part of this sculpture will be tied to a specific person or have a specific story. We're trying to get as many as possible. Where we need to fill in the gaps, I'll probably try to pull from my own personal luggage, friends and family, but I'll also go to Goodwill and Arts again to sort of figure out some of those smaller pieces that we kind of need to sort of fit this piece of that art piece. But everything will be used and upcycled, so nothing new, and then everything will be sourced in Colorado. So that's one thing I really want to hone in on, is that, you know, this piece right here is something where it's kind of like it's a collection of people's, you know, lives, is people's stories from all over the place, and we want to make sure that we get a wide variety of pieces. So if you have a friend or a family member that you think would love to be a part of this, definitely write down that link and send it to them, because I want to try to get as many as possible to sort of sort through and like select from. And we, like I said, we just really want to make sure from north to south to east to west, that, you know, everyone feels like they had a part into it, so that when you go to DIA, you're able to say, oh, this is a really fun art piece. It's cool. I love to take pictures of in front of it. I want to do a TikTok video. If you guys do TikTok videos, I don't, but if you guys want to do TikTok videos in front of it, but at the same time say, hey, this is something that it's not made of, you know, some other raw material. This is actually people's personal bags, and there's a story tied to it, and it's all about community. So that's my sort of, I guess, venture into translating a lot of my 2D work and community work, and sort of like my sort of past practice into this future opportunity to try to make DIA as fun as possible, as exciting as possible. As you're traveling, you know how hard travel is, so I want to make sure that you're enjoying the artwork in there and saying, hey, this is really fun, because DIA, I think, is one of the busiest airports in the world. So it's, you know, it's a chaotic place, but it's like we can make it as fun and enjoyable as possible. And I think art is a perfect way of doing that. And I want to make sure I'm a part of that, but I also want to make sure that you are a part of that as well. So hopefully you like the presentation and sort of like my explanation about, you know, how to get involved, and, you know, the reasoning behind some of the decisions of why it looks the way it looks, and the colors, and, you know, all these different things that you kind of see in my piece. Hopefully I didn't talk too long.
No. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm live back on here yet, so we will see. What we want to talk about now is open this up for questions. As many of you can see, we have a great trail here of some comments and some questions. So please, if you have questions for Thomas, throw these in the chat so that we can ask him some of these great questions. First, I would say, Thomas, like, I think what I can see from reading the comments we've gotten is everyone, just like the selection panel was, is completely blown away by your piece. Like, you're seeing comments like, wow, this is so cool. Love the colors. Beautiful. Love this and the thoughts behind it. Amazing. So much movement. Love it. Amazing. Very cool. Love it. So, so I don't see anyone on here saying, oh gosh, wish you would have chose something else. So I think we can say unanimously, there is no question that you are the right artist to create this beautiful piece in this space, and it's perfect for the space.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking in the comment section right now, and, you know, it seems like people are really into trying to tell some very stories. Like, I see one about the Colorado Japanese American internment camps. I see one from the avalanche. So yeah, I think if people have connections to help me out in terms of telling those stories, send the links to some of those individuals or try to connect me with them. And I think that's a great way of like making sure that those stories are told. So I love to figure out, like I said, like this Colorado Japanese American internment camps, getting some of those stories in there. Colorado Avalanche, I would love to do that as well. I think we won the championship last year or the year before. But it's like I really, really want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of this.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you, Thomas, as you've been talking about this. So go back to you as an artist and your experience, being a military brat, right? How did you get into art? How did this all shape you as the artist that you are today?
Well, I mean, moving every 3 to 5 years, like you can kind of see me small right there. That's in Fort Lee, Virginia. But moving a lot, you have to figure out how to adapt and how to make friends. And artwork was a way of me making friends. So I drew my friends. I drew the people that I would meet, whatever place I would go to. And that was a way of like starting a conversation or connecting with someone because I was fairly good at drawing anyway. And when you're in third grade and someone sees you draw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and it's cool, they want to be your friend. So it's kind of like that continued over and over and over. And the more I did that, the better I got, and the more I just leaned into it. And then it became, I'm the artist wherever I go. And that was a fun sort of just like experience for me throughout my life, is like being able to express myself creatively but connect with people creatively as well. And that's like I think why I'm so big on community and sort of connecting with people.
Yeah, that's great. There's some questions here in the chat that I want to throw out to make sure we get answered. One question: does the donor get notified if his or her item is included in the project?
Yeah, so as we're collecting bags, that's when we're notifying you that, hey, we would love to figure out how to get your bag and add it to the piece. But then if it does get included into the actual sculpture, yes, we'll definitely notify you, because that's something where it's kind of like I want to make sure that story, or at least your name, is a part of the website or part of being recognized. Hey, this is this individual's bag and this is where we got it from. So I want to make sure that you guys are given credit for donating.
Good, thank you. So here's a question: what's your favorite thing about the airport?
Ooh, for me, I don't know. I think I like to get to the airport and just hang out because it's like people watching. I never felt it's like I'm 6 foot tall, but when I go to the airports, I see really tall people because they're from every walk of life. They're from everywhere. And when I travel internationally, it's like just seeing people that are just vastly different from me, and just exploring, the different, customs and cultures and things like that. But just like seeing what everyone looks like in real life, because I've seen people who are like 7 feet tall at airports, and I'm like, I've never seen that other than like a basketball game. So really just like seeing all different individuals in airports and languages and stuff like that as I travel internationally. But like DIA, because it's so busy, it's like you can get that at this local airport. So that's always fun to have.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that really stood out to me is when you talked about the luggage being in an infinite loop, and how that sort of infinity means so many things with regard to the airport and with regard to travel. And you even said it sort of looks like a roller coaster, which I think we all know is appropriate when you travel a lot, right? Because you've got your ups and downs for sure. What about you as you've been traveling? What's your favorite travel destination and why?
I would say I'm trying to go back to Buenos Aires, Argentina pretty often, because I just have a lot of art friends out there. And then another place that I want to go back to is Tanzania, and a place called Orkeswa, and that's like another destination because I did volunteer work out there for about 7, 8 months, and that was like a very pivotal part of my life. And for me, it's like just traveling is a roller coaster. Every new place is like a new challenge. So there's ups and there's downs, and there's ups and there's more downs, and then you can't find your luggage, so that's it down, and then when you find it, it's an up, and then so it's always fun for me to travel different places. But those are two places where I'm always super excited to go to.
Okay, thanks. A couple more comments from the chat. One person said, perfect name, so well thought out. So for the donation list, they think it's a great idea and said, perhaps somehow we could tie into donating luggage on the side for foster kids. I'm going to throw that out as a suggestion. Another suggestion in here was, could we have a small art station near this piece of art for our younger travelers, coloring sheets or something like that? So something to think about there as well. Definitely on behalf of the airport, I think we're open to ideas, so we will be exploring some of these. There was a compliment that you gave a great commencement speech at CU Denver.
Yeah. I did that last year. I was like the first time they had a commencement in person since the COVID stuff, and that was nerve-wracking, but it was super fun for me, and connecting back with the university, my alma mater, was super fun. So getting bags from them, so that was a great opportunity to tell them about the project and say, hey, we need some of your bags as well. Someone had a comment, or they wanted to know what Demerge was, and they're a fabrication company, so they do a lot of public art fabrication, and they're about 5 miles away from me, and they do a ton of great work, so that's why I reached out to them. So that's Demerge, a fabrication company.
Yeah, great. Well, I think the big question that everyone wants to know about is, how long do you think it's going to take to build this? When will it be installed, and when are we going to see this at the airport?
Yeah, so right now is like the official launch of the link for the donation form. So getting that out there and then collecting all the bags will be over the next half year, I would say, until we get into the final design stage is approved. And then once that is approved, that's when I can go into full production of actually fabricating everything. So that will take a good bit, but I believe probably it's safe to say mid 2025 is sort of like the goal of having this piece up and viewable at DIA at Concourse B East. So hopefully mid to late 2025, you'll see it up there. But it's a long process, and I want to make sure I dot my I's, I cross my T's when it comes to making sure that, the community feels represented in this piece. Or has an opportunity to. So I want to make sure that I have a good amount of time to talk to people and collect as many different items as possible.
Yeah, good. There was another comment about some climbing gear, because Colorado is huge for rock climbing. And then another story about you. What's the story behind the name Detour?
So Detour actually comes from a breakdance VHS tape. So VHS tapes. Oh, I feel dated now. So yeah, so I used to breakdance I wouldn't say a long time ago. It was like a part of my life, and amazing part of my life where I learned a lot, and that's also how I made friends as I was, moving from place to place, because dance is a universal language. And one of my favorite dance crews were from the Bay Area in California, and they were called Originality Stands Alone, and they made a VHS tape, sort of like a highlight tape of their ventures, and they put it out there. And this is like me in high school looking at the website when, it was like early days of kind of websites, and I ordered it, and I was living in Germany at the time too. So it took about a month and a half to get to me. And once I got it, now I love the idea of the name, or the word detour. And it was like it was when I was also getting into airbrushing t-shirts, and getting into like putting my work out there to the public as well. And, putting Thomas Evans at the bottom of, a cool t-shirt was like, I want to have a cool name. So I was like, let me just use that word detour. So I used that since probably 2000 and probably about 2000, the year 2001. That's when I started using it, and kind of just stayed ever since.
Oh, that's good. That's a good story. Maybe we could get a demonstration when we cut the ribbon and unveil your piece of your great breakdancing skills, because I think that
Yeah,
would be
I
fun.
may have to break dance in front of it.
All right. Oh, here's a good question. Do you have any idea of how many bags you might use for this installation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, there was a lot of bags in that sample, but that sample piece that you saw, basically it was only 3/4 full. I didn't do the other side. So, that was a lot of bags right there. So I think it just depends on the size of each bag that we put on there. But that's like the that's the question of the day, is like, how many bags do I need? So really, it's all about getting as many bags as possible, and then trying to create that sort of the base structure of the armature, and see exactly, how do we fill it up with more donations and bags. So it's going to be different because every bag is going to be different, and seeing exactly what is donated. So that's going to be one of those Snapple facts that you find under a Snapple cap. And you say, you know yeah, so that's a question that I have as well.
Yeah, that's good. So, Thomas, you talk a little bit about color, because I mean, that's one thing you touched on it here, that it looks at the sunrise and sunset. All of your pieces that I have seen are so colorful, but blended in a really magnificent way. So, what goes into that thought process every time you pick up a paintbrush, or whatever you're doing, to make you determine how to use that color palette, and what goes through that?
Yeah, I mean, I started using color when I started doing a lot of live art. And when you're doing live art, you don't have that much time. So when I was on stage doing live art at Ophelia's, it was 3 or 4 hours to match flesh tone, and I couldn't do it. So I just used the color out the bottle, and that's where I started getting more colorful with my work. And then it just transitioned to me exploring color. And when I started doing a lot of murals and, larger sort of public art, I started noticing how a lot of the architecture and just like the surrounding was muted colors. So you get browns, you get the brick colors, maroons, you get tan colors. And, with all these developments popping up, it's like the same color all the time. So I started really just focusing on how can I stand out with the colors that I use, and really just started exploring that in in my larger works, and really just started getting into sort of, cool color combinations, like pinks and teals always sort of work together with me, or like the red and the orange always work together, and then combining some of these, cool colors together to really make sure that any piece that I do stands out from its surrounding. So that's why I really wanted to hone in on color on this piece and focus on the sunrise sunset, was because those colors aren't really sort of represented in the interior architecture and interior design that DIA has right now. So when you put that piece in there, it really just pops. And with the new renovations, it feels like it's more airy. There's more light, and it's sort of like a white gallery box. And it's like the piece is going to pop even more because there's such a contrast with those bright, bold colors. So that's where I really hone in on, is like, how do I make it stand out as much as possible? From someone, all the way down at the center of the concourse, seeing all the way down at the end of the concourse. Oh, what is that? What is that color that's standing out? It's like bold, it's bright, it's like, there's like this magnetism to it.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was one of the things that drew us to this piece. The airport doesn't have a lot of color, right? We're very white,
Yeah.
with the tents, and a lot of stainless steel and gray. So to be able to warm that space is going to be so incredible, I think. And what you just said is true. I think you are going to be able to see it all the way down, and it's going to draw people down to this new space, which is going to be fun too. There's a question here about, will you use bags inside of bags, or what are you going to do to keep the form while mounted?
Yeah, so I think the Merge and I are going to work on getting fire resistant sort of cushioning or foam to add to those bags, so it keeps the form. So over the course of years and decades, hopefully centuries, it can stay up there, that the bags just don't sort of lose its form over time. So that's the goal right now, and maybe even adding an Easter egg into one of these. I don't know if someone takes down the piece and they're like, oh, what is this from 2020? So it's like it's gonna be really interesting. But that's the idea for right now, is like putting in flame resistant paper, cushion, foam into these pieces so that the form is sort of kept throughout the history of the actual piece.
Yeah. There's some good questions coming in about this, these
Yeah.
specifics. And another thing that stood out to me that you talk a lot about is your ties to the community and making it relatable, which I think is so interesting and goes to how varied your pieces are, and how this one is so specific to the airport as compared to some of the other pieces that you've done. When you were concepting this piece, what was that like for you? Because it feels to me like this was a little out of the box, right, of your normal work. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult because when I applied, because you were talking about the process of public art and how you guys did it, applying for this RFQ was something where it's kind of like I was surprised that I got on the short list, because I'm not as experienced when it comes to making 3D work, and I'm mostly figurative work. I'm mostly large scale 2D work. But people knew my reputation and knew I put together a good team that could put it together and create something that's super wonderful. But they knew my work from around town, so they were super excited to see like what I created, because they didn't know and I didn't know at the beginning as well. But when it comes to being thoughtful behind the decisions that I make, it was kind of like, what do I want to see when I walk through an airport, and what do the next person want to see, and how will they get excited? So for me, it was like the idea of bringing community into it was like, okay, let me figure out how to make it more so of a upcycled piece where I'm using parts of the community, but also something relatable to where it's the luggage that we carry around. So it's something that everyone, regardless of what age they are. It's like if you're a little kid, you're carrying around a big backpack going to preschool with your snacks inside and lunchbox inside. If you're older, you're carrying bags around with you to travel to see grandkids, things like that. So we always have this thing in common. So how do I sort of combine those pieces together? Like the initial sketches, I had like this suitcase sort of like open where all these items are flying out of it, so it was like that's an idea that I had. So I was throwing around a couple of different things, and really as I sort of whittled down, like how can I be more thoughtful behind some of the decisions and people asking questions, because with public art, it's open to the public. Everyone's able to criticize it and poke at it. So I wanted to make sure that if someone looks at it and they're asking, okay, why is this, why is that, that there's something thoughtful behind it, that they leave saying, oh, this is actually really amazing. This is actually something that I can really get behind. And that's sort of like how I came up with this piece right here. It was, something that fit the space, it fit the environment, it fit the the viewers and the stakeholders that were going to be sort of enjoying it. And it's something that's at the intersection of what they want and what I want as well. And hopefully, people will still see that 50 years from now when they sort of view it and learn more about Colorado.
Thanks. That gets to our next comment. Somebody mentioned, please include local sports teams, green chili, tackle box fishing, all of these things that make Colorado so great. And I know that you could see that from the personal items that you were showing, in addition to the bags.
Gotta do tackle box. I used to fish, but I've not fished in almost like 15 years. And I think that is something where I'm like, I really got to figure out how to get a tackle box in there. So yeah, if you can connect me with someone who has a tackle box, or someone who has like an item that can sort of fit, but it's like talks about fishing or hunting or something like that, I think I really love that.
Very cool. Oh, and okay. What does Thomas think of Lucifer, which we call Mustang, not Lucifer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like it because it's like it's art that gets people talking, and it's one of those things where it's kind of like the art when you go to a public art space and you see art and you don't even notice it, or you notice it but you just don't really care about it. It's sort of like for me as an artist that hurts if I were to be that if I were that artist and make that piece of work, but to have artwork that sort of gets people energized and excited and like now there's entire stories about Lucifer. There's entire sort of programs and television shows that sort of reference the piece of work. And for me it's kind of like that's kind of like having your artistic expression out there but having people care enough to say something about it and like actually comment on it and like expand on it and everything. And for me it's I definitely like it. So I want to see Lucifer stay and have more people talk about it and the tunnels underneath DIA.
We don't talk about those.
Yeah.
Last comment, which was great. We have an employee that talked about, would you be interested in documenting your process as you create this piece so that later we can have students explore this? We're creating a new center of equity and excellence in aviation, and it would be really great to be able to feature you as part of this project that we're doing and, maybe be able to share this with this next generation of students.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'd love to sort of be a part of that. And really, it's all about, for me, if you follow me on Instagram, it's Detour303. And on there, every Tuesday, I do art tips. And I've been doing that for the past 7 years straight. Never missed a Tuesday, not even for my birthday or holidays or Christmas. So I'm all about educating and showing behind the scenes and sharing as much experience as possible. So I will be documenting all of this. I even I have a ton of documentation from the actual RFQ and sort of putting together the proposal and putting together the samples, things like that. So, and I'm going to also document collecting luggage because I have to sort of travel now to all different parts of Colorado to collect luggage. So I'll be documenting that. So it's going to be a lot of content, a lot of information, and I'd love to share that with you as well. And I'd love to be a part of that program as well.
Nice. Well, I think that wraps up our session today. I want to thank everyone for participating. Thomas, thank you. We're so grateful that you're sharing your talent here with us at the airport. Can't wait for your piece. And then I will say also just to the group, we're going to do these with the other 3 artists that have been selected as well. So you'll have another chance to participate and learn more about some of the other pieces coming to the airport around the same time. So it's going to be a big year, 2024, 2025. In particular, a big year for art at DEN. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thomas, any final words?
No, just thank you for having me. I hope the people listening and watch the presentation are excited about this piece and want to donate and want to connect me with individuals that they want to see their stories told, their communities expressed in this art piece as well. So definitely follow that link. And for the form to donate, you can also reach me at my website, www.iamdetour.com, and hit that contact section to sort of let me know more about some of the communities you want to see sort of represented in the piece as well. So I'm an open book. I will be documenting the piece and showcasing some of the behind the scenes as well, because it's a public art piece, but I also want to make sure it's sort of like a public process, an open process when it comes to actual fabrication and what happens when you're trying to put all this stuff together so that you feel like you're connected with the work at the end of the day. So yeah, I just want to thank you and the rest of DIA and the community for actually supporting this project and supporting the public art. So yeah, if you're out there and you're trying to figure out what you can do, is like definitely support as much public art as possible, because going to any public space and seeing just muted colors and bland stuff is that's definitely not fun at all. So supporting your local artists and supporting these programs that sort of fund the local artists and sort of like advocate for the local artists is something that I'm always an advocate for.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Detour, and thanks everyone
Alright.
for attending.
So that was the presentation. Hopefully this helped out in terms of visualizing what you should have on your presentation in terms of visuals and the different details about public art. So this is one of the presentations. So this is the presentation that got me awarded the project. So hopefully you like the insight. I'll try to have more videos like this as these different things happen to me, and I will see you next time. Peace.